The date is Tuesday, June 8th. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. The Ministry of Health and Wellness says most of the persons working on mass vaccination Blitz events have been paid. The ministry in a release explains that about 4,000 persons were employed as Blitz workers at vaccination sites across the island on March 27, April 3 and April 9 to 13, 2021. According to the release, engagement of these persons were on a stipend basis, and to date, 83% have received their full payments. The release further explains that of the outstanding payments, 32 are being processed, 60 are without banking information, and 102 have been rejected by the government financial management system due to dormant bank accounts and incorrect account information. The Health Ministry's statement comes in response to concerns aired by the Nurses Association of Jamaica, NAJ, in regard to the payment of public health nurses. In Jamaica, foodborne illness is grossly underreported, but the Ministry of Health and Wellness is monitoring the numbers while working to educate those involved in the food services sector. That's the word from Director of Veterinary Public Health in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dr. Lynette Peters. She says her department has been working in the field with farmers, especially those involved in animal husbandry and meat processing. She shared that information at a recent think tank session. Dr. Lynette Peters says the Ministry of Health and Wellness has recorded over 26,000 cases of illnesses linked to food since 2019.
Of that number, 18,408 were related to persons over 5 years of age and 11,305 in the under 5 year old. We also have seen multiple outbreaks of foodborne illness in our hotels. And however, what I should say is that for 2020, with COVID, we have not recorded much cases in the hotels because of their non-occupancy.
According to the Director of Veterinary Public Health, the Health Ministry's public health program seeks to provide guidance on hazards associated with foodborne illnesses related to animals, from the farm to the processing facility and beyond.
The Ministry of Health has a meat hygiene program that looks at the inspection of animals, all species of animal, including rabbits, for slaughter. And of course, we're seeing some 20,000 head of cattle being slaughtered each year, legally slaughtered. And when it comes to chicken, we're looking at millions of chicken being slaughtered.
She says inspectors regularly check food in hotels and food production facilities to ensure that the end product does not contain harmful substances like salmonella. Mayo Clinic says salmonella infection is a common bacterial disease that affects the intestinal tract. The bacteria typically live in animal and human intestines and are shed through feces. Humans become infected most frequently through contaminated water or food.
We also look at the milk, its quality and safety, fish in terms of its quality and conditions of sale, because you know Jamaicans have a saying, if fly does not perch on fish, then it's of course not safe, but this is not true. We also look at eggs because we do have a challenge with foodborne illness associated with the consumption of raw table eggs. And we have seen multiple outbreaks in the hotels, and so we are in fact monitoring egg farms to ensure that and do sample or test the eggs to see if we do have salmonella and take the necessary action with the farmers to ensure that the conditions of egg production is safe.
Dr. Peters says people should understand that safe food practices can have immediate or long-term benefits for everyone. The COVID-19 pandemic has proved debilitating to small economies such as Jamaica. Governments have been left scrambling to find a way forward in an ever-changing global landscape. There has also been a call from small and developing nations for greater equity in debt servicing, among other concerns.
The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has significantly set back the Caribbean's economic reform agenda and is delaying our attainment of Agenda 2030 development targets. Just before the pandemic, Jamaica was preparing to reap the benefits of its significant macroeconomic reform program. The benefits were instead eroded, and circumstances compounded by significant rain-induced infrastructure damage. The result? Jamaica recorded its worst economic decline in 40 years. This double blow, common in the experience of Caribbean small island developing states, not only contributed to increased debt, but also came on the back of an extended period of climate-induced shocks, exacerbating the vulnerabilities of our small, open economies. In addition to the public health response, Jamaica's COVID-19 recovery has been geared at emerging economically and socially stronger through policy initiatives that boost competitiveness, increase productivity, enhance resilience, and improve social safety. Among other steps, we introduced a stimulus package, including productivity incentives for micro, small, and medium enterprises, and an extensive social protection program. The recovery program also targets investments in green infrastructure, carbon neutral and nature-based solutions, renewables, digitization, and expanded use of technology, especially to support agriculture and supply chain management. In the medium to longer term, it is directly aligned to Jamaica's 2020 enhanced nationally determined contribution and will decouple economic growth from emissions growth.
In his recent address at the virtual P4G, Partnering for Green Growth and Global Goals 2030 Summit, hosted by the government of the Republic of Korea, Prime Minister Andrew Holness made a call to the international community to accelerate climate action and bridge SDG implementation gaps.
Like other developing countries, the extent of Jamaica's greening has been limited by the inadequacy of the means of implementation, including financial resources and technology. For us, recovery includes resilience and is therefore integrally linked to the climate agenda and the SDGs. In this regard, Jamaica calls on the international community to accelerate climate action and bridge SDG implementation gaps. We also call on the international community to ensure that there is equitable global access to COVID-19 vaccines, that financial resources for climate action be scaled up and access simplified, that new categories are established for access to concessional and non-concessional development finance based on vulnerability measures rather than per capita income, that more resources are dedicated to adaptation in recognition of the vulnerability of low emitters, that access to appropriate technology, especially for early warning systems, research and development, digitization, and modernization be assured. Today, we have a unique opportunity to generate an inclusive, resilient, and green recovery that ensures a broad and lasting rise in prosperity, especially for the poorest, most marginalized, highly indebted, and vulnerable. It is an opportunity we cannot afford to miss.
The National Solid Waste Management Authority, NSWMA, is looking to expand its plastic separation project. The NSWMA says almost 100,000 pounds of plastic have been collected from several communities in Kingston and St. Andrew and St. James since its inception. Selected communities in Phase 2 will be educated about the project. Residents will get information on types of accepted plastics, how to separate, collection days, among other things. As plastic is composed of major toxic pollutants, it has the potential to cause significant harm to the environment in the form of air, water, and land pollution. Communities, groups, and strata corporations interested in participating are encouraged to contact the NSWMA's Community Relations Department by calling 876-960-4511 and starting the conversation on sound environmental practices. We now get a quick business report with host Gabriel Thompson.
In Monday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index declined by 381 points to close at over 425,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 92 stocks, of which 44 advanced, 38 declined, and 10 traded firm. The Junior Market Index declined by 18 points to close at over 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 1834 Investments Limited, Burrito Investments Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica. Stocks declined for Access Financial Services Limited, Blue Power Group Limited, and Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited. Trading firm were AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, Everything Fresh Limited, and First Rock Capital Holdings Limited. Mailpack Group Limited was the volume leader with 2.1 million units, followed by Future Energy Source Company Limited ordinary shares with 1.7 million units, and Trans Jamaican Highway Limited with under 900,000 units. In foreign exchange trading for Monday, June 7, the US dollar sold for an average $149.62. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $125.71. The pound sterling traded for $211.96, and the euro sold for an average $184.09. In market data for oil, Brent crude futures fell 54 cents to settle at $70.95 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures slid 49 cents to settle at $68.74 a barrel. And on that note, we close this Tuesday edition of the Business Report Inside the News on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
In news from the region, in the Bahamas, the government will have to provide evidence to court if it wants to demolish the Shantytowns on Abaco. This comes as Supreme Court judge extends an injunction preventing government from destroying all Shantytown dwellings on the island. Jared Higgs reports.
A court injunction protecting Shantytown residents from having their homes demolished is being extended to cover all Shantytowns on Abaco. Attorneys for those Shantytown residents asked for the injunction to cover the entire Bahamas, but that request was denied by Justice Cheryl Grant Thompson. The decision means government will have to pause or change its Shantytown demolition exercise in the farm Shantytown on Abaco. Lawyers for the government had asked Grant Thompson to vary the injunction to remove Abaco, arguing that Hurricane Dorian destroyed the homes in the Shantytowns and they no longer require protection. But Grant Thompson denied that request, reasoning that even if one home remains, it ought to be protected by the injunction. Grant Thompson told the court that the injunction should only be in place for 3 months as the substantive Shantytown judicial review nears a close. She noted that the court is mindful of the human element involved in the matter and that the people involved have universal rights. She added that it is important for the Bahamas to display mutual respect for the lives of everybody in the country, regardless of who they are or where they originated from. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
In Trinidad and Tobago, over $2 billion in supplemental funding was requested by several ministries during a virtual meeting of the Standing Finance Committee of Parliament. Ministries such as the National Security and Public Utilities said they needed millions to assist improving the services given to citizens. Kimberly D'Souza has more.
The Ministry of National Security is seeking over $725 million in supplemental funds for fiscal year 2021. Minister of National Security Fitzgerald Hines said the ministry experienced a shortfall during the year and needs the additional money to pay expenses such as cost of living allowance, traveling and subsidies, and maintenance of vehicles. When asked by opposition MP Rodney Charles about the increased allocation for salaries and COLA, which amounted to $179 million, Minister Hines said the monies will be used to pay various divisions within the ministry.
That $179 million, Madam Chair, For the fire service, 66 million is allocated for the fire service. For the prison service, $109,664,000. For the probation service, $3 million.
Meanwhile, the Tobago House of Assembly requested $80 million. Minister of Finance Colm Imbert said $50 million will be used for recurrent expenditure, which includes funds to operationalize new health services in Tobago.
As you would be aware, the Roxborough Hospital was commissioned recently, and the Mariah Health Center is ready. And for the balance of the fiscal year, we are appropriating $25 million.
He said the funds will also be used to pay debts to suppliers and procure PPE and other equipment to treat COVID-19 patients. The Ministry of Public Utilities requested the largest sum of money, over $944 million, while the Ministry of Health requested over $267 million in supplemental funds. The allocations were approved. Kimberly D'Souza, TTT News.
It was smooth sailing as Barbados on Monday welcomed its first cruise ship, the Celebrity Millennium, in about 15 months. Barbados Today has the details.
The cruise liner set sail from Phillipsburg, St. Martin on a 7-night itinerary with Barbados as its first port of call. It's the first cruise ship where 95% of its passengers and crew are fully vaccinated. Tourism Minister Senator Lisa Cummins, who was on hand to welcome the special guests, stressed that Barbados must be prepared to welcome tourists back to the island. She said today's call follows more than a year of discussions, including key players working through the America's Cruise Task Force. Minister Cummins now wants the task force to adopt a new mandate, which must include creating more opportunities for cruise players.
We have to have an opportunity where Adrian and Mr. Eastman, both of you and your respective taxi associations and the various tour operators have a meaningful opportunity to engage in carving out new niches and new businesses. We have to spread the pie, and it has to be inclusive. But let us talk about what that means. There is not just advocacy. Advocacy is fine. Having conversations with partners is fine. Representation is fine. But we need meaningful business models.
Vice President of Destination Development at Royal Caribbean Group, Josh Carroll, said he's happy to be back in business.
Today is the first call to Barbados. It's actually the first cruise ship in the entire Western Hemisphere visiting any port. And that's historic. And it's also a testament to the trust, partnership. You know, in good partnerships, and I know some of my colleagues here will know, we don't always see eye to eye at every moment. But there's a sincere desire to find a way to get common ground, and ultimately, when you have a shared objective, you can find a way to get there, as we did.
In sports, we kick off with football. Jamaica's senior football team, the Reggae Boyz, held Serbia to a 1-1 draw in their friendly international at Mickey Athletic Stadium in Japan on Monday. Watford FC striker Andre Gray found the back of the net in the 29th minute, but Serbia leveled the score in the 61st minute, courtesy of Strahinja Pavlovic. The boys are using the tour of Japan to fine-tune for the upcoming CONCACAF Gold Cup. And that's our news package. As always, thanks for watching and stay safe.